Welcome to Off Screen. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Becks Perfect, and this is your 7-day guide to everything movies. Boom.
Welcome back, Ms. Perfecta. Pleasure as always, and another week of cinematic fun awaits us, I'm sure. Wait, is it fun? I don't know.
I don't know if we'd call it fun after the news, but there is still stuff out there. There is still stuff that is happening. It's not a blockbuster. It won't save cinemas, but it might entertain you if you fancy a day out.
Well, I mean, of the two films that are in cinemas this week, I think we can say that, an entire 50% of them are great. And the other 50% are urine.
Harsh. I was going to hold back on dropping that bomb of what's good and what's not. But why don't we start at one end of the spectrum and know that it can only get better, shall we?
Okay, so let's start with the urine then. Is that what you're saying?
Urine, if that's what you want to call it this week. So, as part of the London Film Festival, Mr. Connor and I are basically going and looking at a lot of movies in a very short space of time to make sure that you guys are up to scratch with everything out there. One of those said movies is called Kajillionaire, and it stars an amazing cast, which is Evan Rachel Wood, Gina Rodriguez, Richard Jenkins, and Deborah Winger. And Van, tell us what it's all about.
So, Kajillionaire, which is Miranda July's latest film. I'm not overly familiar with Miranda July, although she seems to appeal to, let's just say, a very certain subsect of society who wear a lot of cardigans. Kajillionaire, as you say, has that cast, and they are basically a familial trio. They are a set of two parents and a sort of 26-year-old daughter. So we've got it's Richard Jenkins and Deborah Winger are the parents. Evan Rachel Wood is the 26-year-old daughter, and they're effectively kind of like street-level, low-key grifters. They are con artists, but they're not like dirty, rotten scoundrel level con artists. They are just sort of like, we'll stick our hand through your mailbox and nick your mail in the hope that, you've got a tie that's worth 10 quid kind of level con artists. And basically, during one of their scams, they come across a new character played by Gina Rodriguez, Melanie, who they're enticed by her energy, her good looks, her charisma, and seek to sort of bring her on board to join the fray, although it starts the swift unraveling of their familial dynamic.
I'm evicting you. I can get $10,000 for this space. You understand? $10,000.
We have a child.
That wall is a sponge. It's a sponge. This building ought to be condemned, really. We could report it to the Department of Health and Human Services. What? Okay. Just give us till Friday. You'll have $1,500 in cash bills. We'll have it by Friday. We need a little time to get it together. Friday tomorrow? It's tomorrow? Well, I didn't literally mean... that's just to say, by Friday. It just means end of the week. Next Friday. The one after that. Friday after next. Yeah.
I'm just going to be upfront and say that I absolutely hated it. It's 104 minutes of my life that I would really, really like back. I just found it obnoxious. I found it deeply unlikable. I know it's trying for, these are quirky characters who are meant to be unlikable. But there's no engagement there. The characters are in no way, I'm not enticed in any way to enjoy the exploits of these characters. What you have are effectively four characters who are just obnoxious, cruel shills of human beings. The whole thing, you've ever had that experience, when you've been watching a film with the hubby, at home kind of thing, you ever had that experience when you're watching something and it's really, really rubbish, and one of you eventually snaps and says, I can't take it anymore, why don't we just turn this off and we'll, instead,
Yeah.
Do that instead. Yeah. Right, this is the movie where the characters do that.
Do you know what? I had that with this. No hubby was there, but I did get to the point where I was like, I can't watch this anymore. It's excruciating. Do you know what? I was like, the first scene that you see is the family outside of a post office. Okay.
Yes.
And they send their daughter, called Old Dolio, which is a weird name anyway.
Old Dolio, yeah.
Old Dolio, played by Evan Rachel Wood. They send her into the post office to essentially go and break into some postal boxes and get whatever she can get. And the way that it starts is it is quite fun and it is quite quirky. She does this almost like stealth, jumping down, hiding behind the walls, jumping back up. It's very choreographed. Goes in, and you kind of think, oh, this could be quite fun and quite quirky. Anyway, after that, you kind of go, what the hell am I watching? Because there's nothing to it. Now, the thing that really got me is that Evan Rachel Wood, you've seen her in Westworld, we've seen her in so many amazing films, and she's a brilliant actress. And what she does here, and this is probably my biggest gripe, and I have no idea why she's been directed to do this, she plays like a Beavis and Butthead character. That's like a stroppy teenager.
Perfect. I'm so glad you said that, because it's literally, I literally had it in my notes. It's like, so she looks like she's modelled on 2002 era Avril Lavigne, but she sounds like she's modelled on 2013 era Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. There's a point when she goes into sort of a manic range, a manic craze, and I thought this is like someone's directed her to watch episodes of Rick and Morty and just do one of Rick's drunken furies. It's bizarre. It's a strange directorial choice, but to pick a strange choice from the design and build of this film is, it's like trying to find a grain of sand on the beach. It's bonkers.
Yeah, because like Deborah Winger's character is like this. If you can imagine a woman who's all I can think of was like someone who's been locked away for a number of years and is she's got the scraggly hair, she wears mismatched outfits, her hair covers her face so you can hardly see it all the time, and she's awkward as anything and is very brash and very unlikable just generally. And then Richard Jenkins is almost like trying to balance up some sort of integrity and heart behind what he does, but it doesn't ever quite reach it. And Evan Rachel Wood doesn't even look like she was even born from these two. It just doesn't work. There's no synergy between them as a family. And that's what doesn't really work for me. And then you have this Mexican she's Puerto Rican bombshell that comes in Gina Rodriguez, which completely disrupts the pattern in which this family is working. And you kind of need that, but it doesn't work at the same time. It's like they're in two different movies. And the problem is that if you don't have the synergy between all of these characters and they're not likable, you're not left with very much. And that's the problem.
Well, I mean, put it this way, you can just glance at a poster for Kajillionaire and check the pull quotes that are on there, and you know exactly what kind of film you're about to see based on who gave which glowing reviews, which outlets have given the glowing reviews. You know exactly what film you are in for based entirely on that. I will say the only, and I do mean only, positive thing I can say about Kajillionaire, all 104 agonizingly, soul-crushingly dull minutes of it, is that Gina Rodriguez needs to be in more movies. Other than that, I genuinely can't believe we have now reached a stage in which we are heaping critical praise upon a film in which even the characters themselves literally reach that stage of, do you know what, this is boring, this is awful, why don't we just sack it off and go bump uglies instead?
Do you know what? I was just going to, just to give people some context of this, after both Van and myself watched the film, obviously separately, I get a text from Van and he's like, I can't even with this movie. And I thought, I was like, that's going to go one of two ways. And I wrote back going, yeah, not my bag. And I didn't get a response from Van. And I thought, is there a moment in which he loved this? And I've completely misread his text. No, thank God we're on the same page. It's awful.
I had to contain my rage. I really did. I think you can ask my girlfriend. She called me 10 minutes after I watched this movie, and I was still just pacing around the room, just trying to reassemble my sanity. And she got to witness this in real time. It was just me trying to rebuild my fractured psyche from the absolute fury that this had left me. And I hated it. I hated it with a passion. This argument that, you should go to cinemas and help cinemas out by just seeing whatever's on. If this were the only film showing in British cinemas, I personally would visit every single cinema in the country and lock the door myself. No. It is not worth saving an industry that will attempt to peddle this bilge.
Couldn't agree more. Now, let's try and rebuild your sanity with a different film. Because I think we can only go up from where we're at the moment. So the other film on our list that is also out in cinemas this weekend is called Saint Maud. It is a horror. It is a psychological horror at that. It is also 1 hour, 24 minutes long, the length of the movie I quite like. Hopefully you could feel like this is something that didn't need to be taking any more of your life's cycle away from you.
Right. First of all, I saw this. I think it was back in February. Because this was meant to be out very early in the year, and got shelved because of that pandemic thing that certain media personalities would like to pretend isn't serious. Yes. It's now finally getting a release, and I'm very happy to finally be able to say this. So far for me is the horror film of the year. This is this year's Midsummer. This is this year's Hereditary. This is this year's Get Out. Pick your horror movie. Define the year. This will be the one for this year. So, directorial debut of writer-director Rose Glass, feature debut, stars Morfydd Clark, who was in Eternal Beauty last week as the younger incarnation of Sally Hawkins' character. She takes centre stage here, and it stars Jennifer Ailey, I want to say. Is that how you say her name? E-H-L-E. I've been calling it Jennifer Ale or Jennifer Ailey. I'm not sure. Who, I'll be honest, is going full Sigourney in this. She's going full Sigourney Weaver in this. You described it as a psychological horror. I'll take it a step further and describe it as a religious psychological horror, because there's a serious religious element to this. Morfydd Clark is Maud. She is a very devout believer who is also a hospice nurse. She takes on as a patient Jennifer Ailey's character, who is a former dancer who cannot deal with her spiraling physical condition. She's very hedonistic, and Morfydd Clark's character attempts to save her, as it were. But as Jennifer Ailey's character begins to give in to her baser instinct, as she begins to resume the drink, the drugs, the same-sex relationships, the casual hookups, things like that. This is just one big factor that contributes to this unraveling of this young, religiously charged woman.
Maud doesn't like Carol. Funny, I can't figure out if she's a bigot or if she's just jealous. She went sneaking behind my back to try to scare Carol away. To save my soul, if I understand correctly.
Excuse me.
Don't run away. I'm talking to you. Maud is my savior, you see. She's been looking out for me in more ways than one. But you got a little carried away, didn't you? So what is it? Am I indecent?
No, you're lost.
So there are obviously different types of horror movies out there. There's your jump scare ones. There's obviously, I've described this as a psychological horror. You've talked about the religious horror. Where does it actually really sit in this whole spectrum?
It's very much a crossover film. So on the one hand, you've got sort of the religious iconography of something like The Omen or The Exorcist. It's very Friedkin in that way. You've also got a body horror element that's very Cronenbergian. And believe me, we're talking about very nasty body horror as well. Like I was uncomfortable during this. And at the same time, you've got, imagine what it takes to unsettle me.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just going to tell you, if you see this movie, you will never put a pair of shoes on the same way ever again. All I'm going to say, it's like the fried chicken in Killer Joe. It's just going to warp your worldview. I mean,
is this pushing you from like Western horror is always a little bit more censored than say like Asian horror or stuff from I think the Nordics as well. Like, where are we pushing the boundaries here? How are we feeling? Like you're saying it's uncomfortable. Is it uncomfortable for a Westerner, or is it actually it's out there?
It's out there, full stop. Wow. I mean, first of all, I think both performances from Jennifer Ale, whatever you want to call it, and Morfydd Clark are tremendous. Morfydd Clark, for someone who's seemingly come out of nowhere in this past 12 months and is just really just devastating with all these brilliant performances, this somehow manages to be just the cherry on top. This is an absolutely amazing performance. At the same time as well, Rose Glass's work, both on page and behind the lens, absolutely stellar. There is some great imagery in here. This is a movie that knows how to build atmosphere, but at the same time has this sort of a dreamlike quality. There's a lot made of her visions, her hallucinations, things like that. It's a movie that does equate, because she could just as easily be insane as she is, blessed, as it were, because there is this element of, is God talking to her? Is she insane? That kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, I have all the time in the world for any movie that equates religious devotion to actual insanity. But this one, took it to a whole other level. I think this is something that absolutely, if you're into horror movies in any way, shape, or form, you need to see this. It's something that will really stick with you. It's something that works on a level akin to, I would say, Midsummer. Like, whereas Midsummer was bright and colourful and in the day, this is dark and grimy and British and at night. And I would say there's something of an overlap there, I think.
I'm definitely smiling as you're describing that. So 2 thumbs up from you?
2 very, very glowing thumbs up. As for Kajillionaire, I'd like to volunteer to hack my thumbs off.
We've gone on a real yo-yo from the spectrum today. It's just there couldn't be 2 more polar opposite films that are coming out right now. And look, let's just say the idea is that you stick with St. Maud and you kick Kajillionaire to the curb. And welcome back to Offscreen. So this is your 7-day guide to everything movies, and we're moving straight on to movies on TV. In this block, you're going to hear your weekend's offerings that we've got for you, and they kick off, Marvel fans, with something I know that you guys will love. And I tasked Van Connor with covering this because I thought it's so his bag. What is it, Van? What have we got for them?
It is 2014's absolutely game-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe entry, Captain America: The Soldier, which I can genuinely make an argument for this being... In fact, until Black Panther, I would make the argument for this being the best of the, best all-round of the Marvel movies. This is the second of the Captain America series. It's the first one that sort of brings Captain America into the present day, really. Although he'd been in the first Avengers movie at this point, we hadn't seen him experience the world. So we get that now. So Cap is leading a SHIELD strike team. I think they're literally called Strike. He's leading this team. He goes on missions for SHIELD, and he's starting to question the morality of what it is that SHIELD are doing in the name of protecting the world. Into this mix comes a mysterious assassin known as the Winter Soldier, who brings with him certain revelations from Captain America's past and assassinates Nick Fury in the process, inadvertently turning both Cap and Black Widow into fugitives from SHIELD.
Most of the intelligence community doesn't believe he exists. The ones that do call him the Winter Soldier. He's credited with over 24 assassinations in the last 50 years.
So he's a ghost story.
5 years ago, I was escorting a nuclear engineer out of Iran. Somebody shot out my tires near Odessa. We lost control, went straight over a cliff. I pulled us out. But the Winter Soldier was there. I was covering my engineer, so he shot him straight through me. Soviet slug, no rifling. Bye-bye bikinis.
Yeah, I bet you look terrible in it now.
So I think I remember going to see this with you at the screening. Is this the one where, there is a reason why I'm asking this, where he's at the helipad and he holds everything together?
No, that's the one after this. That's Civil War. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, you mean that wonderful flexing shot that you have to use that in every montage.
Well, also, yeah, and also you've never seen a bunch of critics just sit there and just start sniggering, building up to it's okay to laugh at this, and then everyone's sort of giving it a proper giggle. I love that. But I think I know which one out of the collection you mean now. I did enjoy Civil War, actually, but this for me was a really strong offering for people that aren't as established Marvel fans as well.
The thing is, this is the turning point at which Marvel decided to start recontextualizing the standalone films into different genres. Mm-hmm. So this became a 70s style, paranoia-driven thriller. It's also memorable, really, as the one that starred Robert Redford, who in turn kind of legitimized the Marvel universe by saying to the old Hollywood guard, it's okay to be, a serious, dramatic Hollywood actor and do these movies. So we do owe Robert Redford a serious debt, because prior to this, really, Tommy Lee Jones, I think, was the only one who kind of had that. It was Tommy Lee Jones and Jeff Bridges were arguably the closest we had to that before this. But this was Robert Redford turning around and basically saying, you know what? The guy that runs Sundance is doing Marvel movies. Yeah. So maybe it's time to take the cardigans off, grab some popcorn and actually have some fun for a change. Yeah. It's also got the mother of all plot twists in this, which is kind of old hat now, and it has to do with, the specific makeup of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this would wind up bleeding through to what was then Marvel's new TV show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, which in turn would give us Bill Paxton as a Marvel villain, which was incredible. It's a really, really good movie. Chris Evans is, actually really good in this. Despite the fact that it is an action thriller, Chris Evans gets some serious drama to deal with in this. I mean, I don't think Scarlett Johansson's particularly wonderful in it, but, she's vaguely engaging enough, and it did give us Anthony Mackie's debut as Sam Wilson, the Falcon, who's just a great supporting character in this.
For anyone coming to this on Saturday night, so it's on BBC One at 10:25 p.m, if someone is coming to this fresh, not having seen the first Captain America movie, can we just walk into this and enjoy it?
Not only can they, because really the only thing you need to know about America is he's a super soldier who was frozen in time, and that does get mentioned a lot. But until the very opening of Winter Soldier, which actually I've got another point to make on the film as well, before the very opening of Winter Soldier, I don't think they had ever actually shown on screen what it was that made Captain America so impressive. What were his skills? Because if you watch the first movie and you watch The Avengers, the first Avengers movie, he just seems to be a guy who can punch. Because all the other characters around him are superpowered, he doesn't look particularly impressive, and it's not until you see him in the opening of this movie when he basically just runs the length of an ocean liner and just takes out guys by the dozen, just grabbing them and casually throwing them 40 feet, as if it's nothing. It's not until you see it done that way that you realise, oh, okay, that's how Captain America's powers and abilities work. Okay, that's impressive. This is also, and this was something that was quite unique at the time as well, the introduction of the Russo brothers to the Marvel Universe. This was their first thing. They did this, they did Civil War, and then they did the last two Avengers movies. It was interesting because we comedy directors, them doing this was really something, and it set the tone for a lot of what was to come.
Fantastic, yeah, and they really established things. So there we go, BBC One, Saturday night, 10:20 p.m. If you haven't ever stepped foot into the Marvel Universe, firstly, where have you been? But secondly, this is a way to get involved in it. So it's Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Moving on to Sunday, we're taking you right back to, and I know Van can't even believe this, 1995. You are going to be watching Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Lopez, Woody Harrelson in Money Train. And I love this film. It's about a revengeful New York transit cop who resolves to rob a high-tech train laden with immense amounts of money, and his foster brother, who is a fellow policeman, endeavours to safeguard him.
Are there any questions?
Well, just one. Why did you send the train into the tunnel when you'd been advised we were in there?
Your situation last night didn't move me one way or the other. Anything else?
Yes, Chief Patterson, but your men shot the kid to over a rope chain.
Yeah, they shot him to That's what they did. And you can't buy publicity like that. That boy didn't die in vain. As far as I'm concerned, he's a goddamn hero. Thanks to his sacrifice, the word went forth today. You with my train, and I'll kill you. Now I'm gonna send one more message. I don't like you, so don't with my train again. If you do, we will tangle ass, and you will lose.
One thing I just wanted to see, I've just noticed, right, on Rotten Tomatoes, Money Train has, out of 32 reviews, has only got a rating of 22%. It's got a 1-star rating.
Staggering.
Yeah.
That is. Well, what do you expect of this industry? I mean, come on.
Wow.
One thing, the movie's fun.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, can't you tell from like Wesley Snipes in that clip? Like, it is fun, like his accent, everything. You know that you've got good quality stock when you've got like Woody Harrelson in this movie. You know, you've got Jennifer Lopez in there. She's playing Grace Santiago. It's like there's so much going on in this movie. It's so of its time, and it's like I was actually going to come out and say they don't make movies like this anymore. Like that's the thing. It's outlandish. It's weird, it's bizarre, it's got Wesley Snipes. Need I say more?
That's it. I mean, it's not something that invents the wheel. It's just a tight and tidy, just effectively sort of a buddy comedy action film that's relatively small scale. It's just about these two brothers who want to rob a subway train. And based on the clip, you can kind of understand why, because Robert Blake is just deliciously awful.
Yeah.
In a moral way, just deliciously terrible as their sort of boss. And Jennifer Lopez, I thought, was a lot of fun in this as well. I do recommend checking this out. This is Paramount, 11:50 on Sunday. It's a bit late at night, but definitely worth recording if nothing else. I think it's a really overlooked gem.
Yeah.
It's certainly worth a lot more than 22%.
But also, I'd just say ignore all these big critic reviews. I'm just having a quick look through. So Empire, obviously when it came out, said big stars, big stunts, and big marketing campaigns do not always a good movie make. This is derailed, depressing, and nigh on disastrous. I'm sorry, what?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Empire once upon a time give a glowing review to 1998's Godzilla in exchange for a set visit? I mean, just gonna throw that out there and read into that whatever they'd like. Anyway, on to Monday. Another film that I'm sure got pretty terrible reviews when it opened and is viewed by pretty much anyone who's ever seen it, realistically, otherwise, as an absolute stone-cold classic. It is 1997's Paul Verhoeven directed Starship Troopers. How much do you love Starship Troopers, Becks? Come on.
Yeah. Don't worry. Like, this is the golden years. And even if I haven't seen it in 25 years, I remember seeing it when it first came out. So don't get me wrong. Sci-fi action at its finest. 2 hours, 9 minutes, tidy. It's an interesting little one. Like, give us your synopsis of this, because I'm interested to see how you describe it.
Starship Troopers is terrific first of all, it's an adaptation of the novel named by Robert Heinlein. It follows Johnny Rico, who is I'm trying to remember the city he comes from. Buenos Aires. I think they're from Buenos Aires. And they're all high school kids. They're all, for some reason, Caucasian American, despite the fact that they live in Central America. And I think he is Hispanic in the book. They are teenagers who, straight out of high school, enlist in the military, just as an alien race simply known as the Arachnids wage war on the Earth. And they become frontline cannon fodder for this propaganda-fueled fascist administration's war on an alien race.
Naked force has resolved more issues throughout history than any other factor. The contrary opinion, that violence never solves anything, is wishful thinking at its worst. People who forget that always pay. Rico, what's the moral difference, if any, between a civilian and a citizen?
A citizen accepts personal responsibility for the safety of the body politic, defending it with his life. A civilian does not.
The exact words of the text. But do you understand it? Do you believe it?
I don't know.
Of course you don't. I doubt anyone here would recognize civic virtue if it reached up and bit you in the ass.
Can you not call them arachnids? They're called alien bugs. That's all you need to know.
Well, that's the thing. So first of all, the movie is punctuated. This is a trick that Verhoeven had, used, I think, for the first time in RoboCop exactly 10 years prior as well, which is to use the media and use intercut, VTs and video segments from the actual in-world media as a way of sending up the fascist overtones of everything that's going on, and basically, parodying what he viewed as the fascistic leanings of society. The film is an absolute masterpiece. I really do think it is. In recent years, Verhoeven has reclassified it ever so slightly by going out of his way to point out that he specifically cast terrible actors. He wanted terrible actors who were pretty. So he got in the lead Casper Van Dien as Johnny Rico. Casper Van Dien never really been in anything else of substance. I think he turns up as the would-be love interest rival in Sleepy Hollow like 2 years after this.
He is a name that people still recognise. So
seems to be, I think, for this. And of course, Denise Richards, front and centre. Jake Busey is in there, although I don't know who'd call Jake Busey pretty. And I don't get how you would ever call him a bad actor, but Neil Patrick Harris as the weirdly creepy and slightly psychic Carl. But it's the supporting cast that makes this, and you've got people like Michael Ironside, who you heard in the clip. Dina Meyer is one of the younger ones as well, and my personal favourite, Clancy Brown, the late great Clancy Brown, as drill instructor Zim, who does get to join in the fight at the 11th hour. There's also an almost blink and you're missing cameo from Dean Norris from Breaking Bad, who's Walter White's brother-in-law from Breaking Bad. You know, the cop that's his cop brother-in-law, whose name I forget off the top of my head.
Yeah, great. I mean, look, it is a good cast. It's solid. It is good fun. Like the fact, I love the fact that you call this a masterpiece, and the title is just so B movie, and it's, isn't it, like Starship Troopers. So it's a nice little thing to discover and to enjoy, and you guys can do that on the, you know, from the comfort of your own couch, because it's on ITV4 11:05 p.m. on Monday. If you're up late, or if you're going to press record for this just to manage to watch it for later on in the week, it's going to be well worth your time. It's a good golden era of movie classic that we are seeing out there from Paul Verhoeven. So there we go. That's your roundup for this week. The movies on TV. Your first part of this, we've got Captain America the Winter Soldier on BBC One at 10:25 p.m. Money Train on Sunday, Paramount Channel 11:50 p.m. And then kicking off your week on the Monday, it is Starship Troopers on ITV4 at 11:05 p.m.
Welcome back to Off Screen, and carrying on with your movies on Freeview for the week, we're going to take you to Tuesday night, now on Film 4 at 9 p.m. Why don't you tell us what we're in for with The Hitman's Bodyguard, Miss Perfect?
Well, I'm just going to say Ryan Reynolds. Do we need to know anything else?
There you go. Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, I'm done. Let's hope he's got some Deadpool wisecracks in there. This is a 2017 film where Ryan Reynolds is basically, I think he's come out of like the whole Deadpool sort of like hysteria about it around that time. It kind of catapulted him once again back to the limelight. So we're seeing him stars alongside Samuel L. Jackson and also the brilliant Salma Hayek in this. He plays a protection agent, and he's basically brought in to guard the life of his mortal enemy, one of the most notorious hitmen out there. The relentless bodyguard and manipulative assassin have been on the opposite of a bullet for years and are drawn together within a wildly outrageous 24 hours.
Go with God. This man's killed over 150 people.
250, easy.
Now, I'm a huge, huge fan of this, and I'm very happy to say I think we're supposed to be getting The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard coming out. It was supposed to be later this year. I think it's going to be middle of next year now. That, I believe, has already been shot. I'm a big fan of The Hitman's Bodyguard. So it's effectively another spin of the sort of Midnight Run idea. You know, it's one guy has to escort the other guy from point A to point B for protection, and in this case it's testifying against Gary Oldman at The Hague, and Gary Oldman's having the time of his life just being this spittle flying, scenery chewing Eastern European warlord type. And it's about Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, and it's about Samuel Jackson being Samuel Jackson. It's the clash of personalities that come out there. Specifically, at one point, Ryan Reynolds accuses Samuel Jackson of single-handedly winning the word, that word that Samuel L. Jackson likes to say a lot, that we can't quite repeat here. It's a lot of fun, though. Some of it is a bit of a misfire. Elodie Young, as Ryan Reynolds' on-again, off-again love interest, is awful in it. She's terribly cast. I can't figure out. The reason she had the role was because at that point it was expected that she would become a breakout star off the back of season 2 of Daredevil when she'd been cast as Elektra. The idea was that this was going to be her film role to sort of tie in with that, and she was going to be a star, but you know what? She wasn't, and when you see the movie and you see her performance in it, you can kind of understand why. Although,
it's a shame, though, because I enjoyed her as Elektra in Daredevil. I thought she was really good in that. But do you know what? Like, I think there was a lot of pressure on this to be good, and I delivered. Like you say, a few little misfires, but overall, a really enjoyable movie. And for you guys, just to kind of kick off your week with on a Tuesday, it's on at a decent time. It's on Film 4 at 9 p.m. Nice and simple, but you can have a lot of fun. If you love Ryan Reynolds, and who doesn't, you're going to get what you want from this. So, there's something for the girls, something for the boys. It's a load of old fun. And of course, Samuel L. Jackson and Salma Hayek thrown into boot as well.
Put your Mint Mobile down, pour yourself an Aviator gin, settle down for some Ryan Reynolds. You know how it goes.
And hopefully Rick Moranis might just from his recent incident.
Exactly.
Right, moving on to Wednesday. I had to ask Van about this one because it's not one that I'd seen. It's on Paramount Channel at 9 p.m. It's called Hard Target, and you basically said it's like the movie version of one of the most difficult games out there.
The novel, The Most Dangerous Game. So, there's that novel, The Most Dangerous Game, and it gets adapted all the time. There's a million different interpretations. Recently, we had The Hunt, which was an adaptation of this.
Okay.
And it's the usual thing where, rich people hunt poor people for sport. It's that idea. This was John Woo's English language debut in 1993. Wow. And it starred Jean-Claude Van Damme, back when Jean-Claude Van Damme could own a movie. And this is like vintage Van Damme. He's got the white vest and the slick back, scraggly long mullet. That kind of look.
Did he do the splits?
Yes, he does the splits. Yes, he's got the painted on blue jeans that his vest is tucked into with the leather belt and the cowboy boots. That look that he had for about 4 movies in a row, starting with I think Nowhere to Run in about 1991. The villain is Lance Henriksen, and it is that format. He is Chance Boudreaux, a New Orleans-based drifter, or he's just a drifter who happens through New Orleans, who takes on a job helping a young woman find her missing father. Her father, a homeless man, has mysteriously gone missing amidst a series of missing homeless people. You can sort of guess where this is going to go and where this mysterious drifter with all these kung fu skills might actually take things, including up to a very specific and very familiar confrontation with Arnold Vosloo from The Mummy, who's a henchman in this. And he's got hair as well. And that bit in Face Off when they're backed up against the side of the mirror? There's one on each side of the mirror and they're talking to one another. That is exactly what you're getting in this exact moment.
Boudreaux, Boudreaux, Boudreaux. I've been looking all over for you.
You've been looking in the wrong places.
That's good. Because I know you wouldn't want to hurt my feelings.
That clip did just make me chuckle, and I know that made you.
It does, doesn't it?
When you mentioned Arnold Vosloo as the mummy in The Mummy, I've just looked at him and gone, it is. Oh my goodness. I did not realise that. This is crazy. So, look, a good cast. Opposite to a previous Empire review that I had for, what was it that gave a bad review? For Money Train. This particular Empire reviewer has described this movie as enjoyable from start to finish. This throwaway action flick does exactly what it says on the tin. Nice and concise. Probably describes it in the best way.
And it has my favourite ever Jean-Claude Van Damme moment in this film. First of all, it is John Woo. It's peak John Woo. I mean, obviously he'd go on to give us his or become his masterpiece. But this is, for me, this movie when I was 10 years old, I was obsessed with it. I had a baseball cap I wore every day for a year of this movie. I absolutely adore Hard Target. But it's got my favourite Jean-Claude Van Damme moment when he saves, I think it's Yancy Butler who plays the female lead. He saves her from some muggers, hands her back her handbag and says, "Next time, be more careful where you show your wallet." What? What did you just? What are the words that just came out of your speech paddles? What just came out of your hole? What did you say? Wallet? What is it? What is a wallet? Wait, Frenchy Frenchison, what the hell are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, absolutely. See Hard Target. It's only about 90 minutes long as well. Paramount Channel, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. You got to see this. You will love it. You will want people back.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's like it's pure nostalgia, left, right, and centre. Like I'll watch that and then double bill it with something like Universal Soldier. I mean, it's yeah, that's my Wednesday night sorted. Right, okay, let's move swiftly on to Thursday, the Horror Channel, 9 p.m. Now, this was a big movie when we were growing up. This is a 1998 movie. It's called Urban Legends. You'll recognise the poster. It was quite iconic, Lots of people in your VHS video shops, when that came out on the shelves, that was the one that was turned around because everyone had taken it out. This is like, it's kind of Scream-esque, it was that whole kind of new genre of horror movie film to it, and it was great. It's basically centers around a series of murders that take place in and around a university, and a lady called Natalie begins to suspect that the deaths are inspired by various urban legend. So if anything was going to say that it does exactly what it says on the tin, you're pretty sure that you're going to get it from this. Now, it's got a whole load of people that you will recognise and also some that you won't. But Alicia Witt is in this, which...
Yeah, remember Alicia Witt?
Yes, but I'm trying to think where I remember her from. It's just not my so-called...
Do you know what? It's not. I will tell you exactly where you know her from. It was from the 90s sitcom Sybil, with Sybil Shepherd and Christine Baranski. She was the daughter.
Exactly. I always remembered her name and I knew who she was. But yeah, yes, you're so right. I loved Sybil. I really enjoyed that. Again, this is the thing. When we only had 4 or 5 channels to watch on TV.
Back in the day.
Yeah, you actually watch good quality stuff. We've also got Jared Leto and Joshua Jackson as well. But we've also got Rebecca Gayheart in this as well. And also a number of other people like Tara Reid is in this. Loretta Devine is in this. It's crazy.
The big marketing hook. I mean, I'll cue the clip up in a second to demonstrate one example of this. But the big marketing hook was that they had numerous people who were horror icons turn up in. This was when Scream had just hit big. I think Scream had hit big about 18 months earlier. This was kind of greenlit the day after Scream. And it was all about the sort of meta of the moment. So there were moments where, for instance, Joshua Jackson gets in his car and he happens to have been playing the theme song to Dawson's Creek on his cassette player, for instance. But there were horror icons who appeared in this film, one of whom, well, let's see if you can identify him from this.
That really happened to a girl in my hometown.
Oh, yes, I'm sure it did. I'm sure most of you grew up thinking that this happened to girls in all your hometowns, but it didn't. You see, the babysitter and the man upstairs is what we call an urban legend. Contemporary folklore passed on as a true story. Now, there are variations of this one going back to the 1960s, all of them containing the same cultural admonition. Young women, mind your children, or harm will come your way.
Well, when don't you recognise Robert Englund? When don't you recognise Freddy Krueger himself? Yes. You just expect that suddenly. You just expect something like, I don't know, like some nails to kind of go down a window pane or something. That's what I'd expect.
Well, that's the thing. He takes on the lecturer role in this movie. He's the college professor who teaches about urban legends. Actually, one name that we didn't pick up on, who's a member of the cast, is Michael Rosenbaum. Is in this. He's Lex Luthor from Smallville, because that was the first time I'd seen him with hair, because obviously, Lex Luthor is starkly bald. Great movie, though, and this is good fun. It's held up pretty well as well. It's a decent, pacey slasher film. Yeah, I'm calling it pacey despite the fact that Joshua Jackson stars in it, so the 90s reference to that one. Very worth checking out. I mean, the sequels are terrible. I think the first sequel, one of the sequels stars Kelly Brook. But terrible sequels, but the first one is absolutely worth watching. And, Jared Leto, Alicia Witt, and Tara Reid. I mean, who doesn't enjoy seeing Tara Reid hunted down by an anonymous murderer and hacked to death for our entertainment? Who doesn't enjoy that?
I prefer to see her on that than I do seeing her on Cameo right now, so... Okay, all right. So, Urban Legends, you will recognise the front cover for that as well, but it's well worth your time. That's on the Horror Channel at 9 p.m. We're going to end your Friday with another classic movie. It takes you back to the 90s once again. It's got a big shark. It's got a lot of water. It's got LL Cool J. It's Deep Blue Sea.
Now, you've seen how bad things can get and how quick they can get that way. Well, they can get a whole lot worse. So we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to pull together and we're going to find a way to get out of here. First, we're going to seal off this.
Yes, they deserve to drown, and I hope they burn in hell. I love this movie.
Do you know what I was just thinking? I love nothing more than hearing a clip with a rousing speech by Samuel L. Jackson, but then suddenly when he gets swallowed by a shark, it makes it all the better. I enjoyed this movie very much as well. Again, of its time. Saffron Burrows is in this. Like, I used to love watching Saffron Burrows and stuff. Like, she was great. And, you know, it's got a great little cast. It's another one that does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a good, fun movie.
That's the thing. I mean, it's a mid to low high budget B movie, effectively. Warner Brothers put out in the summer of '99. It was a summer actioner. Rennie Harlan directing, you know, off the back of things like Cliffhanger, Die Hard 2, and things like that. It was what it is. I mean, it features a gratuitous sequence in which Saffron Burrows has to literally strip to avoid a shark. She has to literally take her clothes off to get past to electrocute and get past a shark.
That's how you avoid a shark. You just have to strip. You knew that, right?
Well, I mean, I've been falling back on the LL Cool J method of just climb in the oven and nuke it, but and then do a rap song about it in which you're not sure if you're the shark or his prey. But one of the most bizarre sets of lyrics I've ever heard. And if you've never heard Deepest, Bluest, parentheses, Shark's Fin, close parentheses, you haven't lived yet. But you can see this extraordinarily fun 1999 actioner on 5-star on Friday night at 9 p.m. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I know you're with me on this one.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. This is so much fun. It will round your week with a big fat smile on your face. Hopefully the weather will pick up, and if it doesn't, you can just watch this on reruns as well. So there we go. That is your 7-day guide to everything movies on TV. Coming up next, we've got your DVDs, your Blu-rays, and of course, your streaming. Welcome back to Offscreen. We are capping off the podcast for this week with, of course, your DVD, Blu-rays and streaming for your viewing pleasure. Now we're going to kick off with some DVDs and Blu-rays that are out as of Monday. The one and only big thing on our list this week for that side of things is Finding the Way Back. And as Van has just jauntily said to me just off air, it could not find its way back into cinemas thanks to Corona. Well, you're very right. Poor old Ben Affleck is stuck on the sofa with the rest of us in this movie, about essentially an old basketball star who has to now, post living a life of alcoholism and his life falling apart, refines himself by becoming a college coach once again.
You're Marcus, right?
That's right.
You're the tallest player on the team.
Oh.
Makes me wonder why you're putting 3-pointers up every time you come down the court.
Ask Coach Dan. I made the most threes on the team last year.
Coach Dan, how many threes did Marcus make last year?
Made 34.
Out of how many attempts?
Out of 130.
26%, Marcus. If you want to know why they're leaving you open, it's because they don't think you could hit the ocean from the beach.
Yo, he just spit Becks at your ass, bruh. Man, shut up.
I don't need any help.
He doesn't need help, but he does need a theatrical release. This wouldn't have done anything at the box office had it actually opened in cinemas.
Do you know what? It got a lot of buzz around like Ben Affleck, like good, kind of really good performance in it. And I kind of get that, but it was very repetitive within this movie. It's a very dark movie. It's very sort of like, is it art imitating life kind of movie as well?
There was that, yeah. There was that kind of like, why would you put yourself through this, man? I mean, talk about exercising your demons in public. Jeez.
Maybe it was therapy for him, but it doesn't quite have the oomph of a sporting movie that you want, a high school sporting movie that you want. It focuses far too much on the downside of Ben Affleck's character in this. It's worth a watch out of intrigue to see if Ben Affleck can still act. Yes, he can. But it's probably not worth anything more than that. But it is available for you as of Monday, the 12th of October. So catch it if you can whilst it's finding the way back.
So I'm very happy to talk about what's coming to streaming this week, because the very first, I'm going to do these in blocks because we've got blocks of films coming to streaming, so we'll take them as blocks. I want to talk about this coming Sunday, October the 11th. We're getting 2 films. We're getting one ahead of the Christmas season. We're getting the new-ish version of Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. This is the animated one starring Benedict Cumberbatch as the Grinch, which is okay. It's decent enough. My nephew seems to think it's incredible. But, he can't do sentences yet, so make of that what you will. However, one that I am a very, very big fan of that's appearing on Netflix alongside The Grinch for a very different audience is Overlord, the World War II zombie thriller that's just got John Carpenter written all over it.
Do you know what? No, let the kids watch this one. They'll learn a thing or two. Do you know what? I remember watching this in the screening. And when the twist happened of the whole zombie side of things, I turned around to Jamie East and we both looked at each other and were like, Oh my goodness. I really enjoyed this and it surprised me. I thought it was good as that kind of like military operation. Like it's very tense from the outset. They're in like a plane at the beginning as it's flying over, and you feel every like doodle bug and bomb that's dropping left, right, and center from them. You really feel immersed in this movie, and then it has this massive twist, and it's this huge zombie like shoot 'em up. It's like a video game. It's brilliant.
It's funny you say that it's like a video game, because two things I can say on this one, other than the obvious John Carpenter thing, and the fact that Wyatt, when his dad was such a Carpenter mainstay, the video game thing. First of all, this is very close to the Wolfenstein series of video games, particularly the new generation, sort of PS4, PS3 kind of generations of Wolfenstein games. The other thing is, they were very upfront about it being a zombie movie, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because they should have held that back and had this be like the first time you saw From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
And, the hammer drops and the Tarantino movie becomes the vampire movie. This should have been the hammer drops, the World War II movie becomes the zombie movie. And it would have been, like you say, that moment in which you have to turn to Jamie in shock. It would have been great if that had been the common thing.
That's one of the real pleasures of us being able to review this stuff ahead of all the marketing coming out and ahead of everything, seeing all the trailers and stuff, is that we get that surprise and that experience if we go in just knowing that we have to cover this movie but not actually having the chance to know too much about it. So we have a little bit of a luxury there.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Over on Amazon Prime, though, on Tuesday, October 13th, obviously we're getting closer to Halloween, and we can't just rely on that, very shoddy-looking Adam Sandler comedy to tide us over on Netflix. Was it Hubie Halloween? Amazon are hitting back with two of their own. They've got two horror chillers, but these seem to be more psycho thrillers in their own unique ways. First of all, we've got Evil Eye, which is a new movie that's been produced by Priyanka Chopra Jonas. I need to get used to calling her that now. And this is a largely Asian American cast. It is the standard sort of, girl gets a boyfriend, something's a bit iffy about him. But in this case, the person who's, investigating all is her mother. And it's an interesting looking through. We didn't get a chance to get a link. I did see the trailer. It looked very, very good. We've also got Nocturne, which kind of looks like Black Swan, but with violin players, with violinists. It's an elite musical academy, and you've got twin sisters who try to step out of each of those. One is more popular than the other, but the popular one finds the journal of a classmate who recently took her own life, and begins to use the secrets within it, only to find it's awakening dark things within her as well. So I think look for something of a Black Swan in this kind of a horror chiller. So that's Nocturne and Evil Eye, which are on Prime on Tuesday. Also on Prime, to close out the week, though, is I think arguably the biggest streaming edition of the week. And it's a relatively new film. This film is only 9 months old, and we talked about back in January. Take us through the personal history of David Copperfield, Miss Perfect.
So, for anyone who knows the story of David Copperfield, this is a new retelling of it, and it's not like it's the first time that we've had a retelling of this tale, but it is full of brilliant cast members. It's colourblind casting, which I think is really interesting. So you will get what I like about it is that obviously the casting is colourblind, but the shots themselves are incredibly colourful. It's full of pastels and it makes British summertime, and it's just a happier time, and it's a really fun jaunt through the life and times of David Copperfield.
I was convinced the famous soprano was practicing upstairs.
Oh, exciting. Who?
No, I mean to say, it turned out to be you.
Oh, I see. A compliment. Thank you.
Copperfield?
I have to go. Proctor.
You could come up after my next lesson. I can sing you a piece.
Thank you. I'll bring something to throw at you. As in a bouquet of flowers.
Yes.
And the best part is, do you know who's playing his love interest there in that scene? It's none other than Morfydd Clark from St. Maud.
There we go. Do you know what? This is a critic's favourite, this movie. This is the classic movie. You go in and go, the critics are going to love this. I walked out kind of enjoying it, but not loving it. I actually felt, I felt it. I can't put my finger on what let me down. doubt about it. But when you kind of gauge all these different movies and you go, that's a BAFTA movie, that's an Oscar movie, this was a Biffa movie, right? This was one this is one that Rain Dance will do really, really well. And I think it did, actually, but it doesn't quite hit the heights of BAFTA and beyond. And it's hard to see why, because the cast is insane. It's got Dev Patel, it's got Hugh Laurie, Tilda Swinton, Ben Whishaw, so many more people in this. Peter Capaldi's in that as well. Gwendolyn Christie's in this. Morphy Clark, like you mentioned. I almost think it's almost too earnest within itself. There's almost too much. You're sort of nodding at me down the line. It's there's something about it that's almost too jolly, almost more than Hugh Laurie can possibly be in this movie.
It's a public school movie. That's what it is. It's a public school movie. And the problem for me is I adore Armando Iannucci, who wrote and directed. In particular, The Death, which was his last film before this, and I thought that was absolutely tremendous. Going from The Death of Stalin to this seemed for me like a bit of a cynical grab for some awards contention, I think.
Yeah, and I think the expectation was, following The Death of Stalin and all the other stuff that Armando Iannucci has done before, you think it's a dead cert. Oh, I've just looked it up. It did win Best Independent Film Award for Best Screen. I knew.
Love it.
With that, it definitely is a Biffa film. If that describes it in a nutshell for you, you know exactly what you're going to get out of this. It just doesn't quite teeter on brilliance. That's the problem with it. But it's got all the components that should make brilliant. There's just something that doesn't quite fit.
I agree completely, but you know what? You can find out for yourself from Friday, 16th, next week, on Amazon Prime. It's in the next few weeks. Amazon Prime are adding the big film of the year. Best Picture winner for the year is reaching Amazon Prime in the next couple of weeks. We won't name it, but we'll talk about it when it's on there. But you can probably figure it out from those complex clues that we've just laid. But that's going to be an interesting conversation, and particularly...
That's going to be really interesting because it has just played, not so many months ago, in the Curzon. There was a black and white version of it.
That was my, which version was going to be the regular colour one? And also, how much did Amazon have to lay down to get the rights to that?
Yeah, a lot of have to have dropped for that movie there. So anyway, that will round off our week for you guys. Looking forward to finding out if our cryptic clues have resonated with you and you know exactly what we're talking about. So all the more reason to stay tuned with us next week. But this has been Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies. I've been Becks Perfect.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall return.